Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Rogue Wave podcast, the frequency for all things pop culture and the disruptors behind it. We talk comics, movies, TV, and pop culture every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern on Facebook.com/Rogue Matter Podcasts and stream live on YouTube.com/Rogue Matter. Download our podcasts wherever you get your fix on podcasts or go to RogueWavePodcast.com to subscribe. That's Rogue Wave without an E. Join the movement. Go Rogue, RogueMatter.com. I'm your host, Michael Dolce, as always, joined by my cohort in crime, the Lord of the Radio himself, Mr. Hassan Godwin. How you doing, sir?
Everything is great.
I love it. All right, everything is man. You know what's funny? I have not been drinking as much lately. Like I've been really trying to cut down like the amount of times I drink per week.
Was that starting to become a problem?
No, but you get older and all of a sudden you're like, I probably shouldn't have a drink every day, even though like I do enjoy like having like a beer to unwind. Like when when the night gets over, it's like, it's almost became like a reflex, right? Like a voluntary reflex. But ever since then, my brain is not working now. I think I actually need the alcohol to function correctly. Everything is awesome is the song I was thinking about. And I couldn't think about it. And it has been this all week long.
I think the experts would tell you the exact opposite of
what do they know? What do they know?
I'm not gonna. I haven't actually since the big C word, the year of C. I've realized, wow, I don't have to drink at all because it's been so long since I've actually had like a drink of anything.
But we're gonna change that in the coming weeks. We're gonna do.
I don't think we are. You may be, but I don't think
it'll be the best podcast we ever do.
Right.
So we got a lot going on. We've got a Marvel double feature today to talk about, which is kind of cool. Which by the way, poor planning on their part, right? Like, wouldn't you think they could release Black Widow after the season finale of Loki instead of in succession together? Why? I know they were doing some movie.
Did it stop anyone from watching Loki?
No, I'm just saying for us, it would just be way better. And plus also for the news cycle, it would allow people to like go through Loki, and then digest Black Widow right after. So you're actually in the news cycle a little bit longer. I mean, it just from a marketing standpoint, it would make more sense for them to do it. And again, it would help us out. But
they're going through Black Widow, and now they're the week after they're going to be digesting Loki. So it's the same as what you said, only in the reverse.
No, but because there's a Loki last week, people were digesting that and a Loki this week. So you're basically you wedge Black Widow straight in the middle, and then all of a sudden you have to kind of talk about both at the same time, whereas Loki would have been talked about all this time, and then if it was released not this Friday but next Friday, then you would have had the luxury of just continuing the news cycle. That being said, and we'll lead off with this. I don't think marketing. I don't think dates and times seem to matter anymore. I think people, it just seems to drop when things drop. So Deadpool was in the news last night.
I do believe I said this to you last week and the week before when you asked me about whether or not it was too late for Black Widow to come out in the first place, right?
Oh, we'll get into that. I have a great article on
the
that
way things are, it doesn't. Okay, good.
But yes, no, the way marketing seems to work right now, it does not seem to matter to the marketers as to when things drop. There is not necessarily a cohesion because Deadpool was in the news last night. Now I sent you a trailer. I know it was late, so we didn't get a chance to see it. It's not even a trailer. It is literally a commercial for the movie Free Guy starring Ryan Reynolds. So if anybody hasn't seen this, it's Deadpool, who obviously the actor underneath the mask is Ryan Reynolds. He's in the new movie Free Guy. The villain of Free Guy is Taika Waititi, also known as the director for Thor, but he's also an actor as well as a director, and he's the voice of Korg. So this is now officially, or at least
Rabbit. He did Jojo Rabbit. He did Ragnarok. He directed Thor Ragnarok. He does What We Do in the Shadows TV show and the movies. He's a very, very creative guy and a very,
enjoyable filmmaker, right? I mean, I think he makes things that are relatively good on the palate when you digest them. Say what you will about Thor Ragnarok. It was an enjoyable experience. Whether or not Thor fans were happy with it, I don't know. Some non-Thor fans were happy with it. I think, it ranges the gamut, but it wasn't poorly done, right? I mean, at the end of the day, it's an enjoyable film.
The best of the 3 Thor movies.
I disagree. Actually, it depends. It's a fun movie. As much as it's a Thor movie. No, I think the first Thor movie to me was
not how you feel. I'm talking about how it's considered.
By the masses.
The highest. Yeah, and it's also got the highest audience score.
Okay.
It's got the highest audience score. Yeah. What's wrong with that argument since you make it all the time?
I'm just saying. It's interesting that you're pointing out. I feel the first Thor movie is a better Thor movie.
I'm making. Well, that's. But I said, here's the thing. I'm not saying what you think.
Right.
I'm saying it's how it's considered. Right.
In terms
We're
of
arguing
movies,
about
yes.
whether you think it's a better movie. I wouldn't argue with you about that. That's your choice.
Well, I appreciate that. So,
of course,
Korg and Deadpool are reacting to the trailer for Free Guy, and of course, that's the big thing on social media is, we finally get Deadpool in the MCU, or Deadpool 3 is going to be coming, or blah 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 blah. I look at it in a much different way. I actually look at this as the future of marketing. Because in my mind, I'm wondering, is Ryan Reynolds getting paid to do Deadpool? And is Taika Waititi being paid to appear as Korg? Or are they doing it? Is this now kind of roped into their duties to promote Free Guy? Is it the same as giving an interview to countless magazines and podcasts? Is it something that we're going to start seeing more of, which is in-character appearances versus actor appearances? Now, don't get me wrong. It's fun. I think it's pretty evident that Ryan Reynolds is a very, creative guy, fun guy, improv-wise. Just his history and everything you read about him is amazing. I've gotten a chance to interview him myself, which was great a few years ago. I have to see if I could dig that interview up from somewhere. And Taika Waititi again also seems to be. It seems like those two working together, they're game for this kind of thing. But I'm just wondering, is this the future of marketing? Is this the future blurring of these lines between, the actor and the character?
I don't know. It's a vague question because they've been doing this for a long time. The Star Wars people showed up on the Muppets. So oh yeah, they've been doing that for quite a while. Having and then doing the meta thing where because the two of them are watching the Ryan Reynolds movie,
yes.
Right? So one of them is why. So they've had Mark Hamill on stage with Luke Skywalker. They've done the meta thing,
Okay.
So I think as you're saying, it's a marketing tool. Yeah, absolutely. I don't think it's a fairly new marketing tool, but it's definitely they've found a useful way of utilizing that tool in whatever in whatever capacity it's in. So I agree with that.
Maybe my question or what was going through my mind as I'm watching this is more prevalent because we have our ears connected to social media so much, and with the fans' expectations and with the fans' demands and the fan service. And then, the whole idea that Phase 4 was announced and Deadpool's not on it, right? None of the X-Men movies are on it. So you start to wonder, if everything we're watching now, because it was so meta, in a way, this is Marvel's way of saying, here's Deadpool. You want a Deadpool? Here's Deadpool.
Yeah, I guess so. I think I'm confused by the question.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's a clever marketing tool. I think it's interesting. I didn't see it because you sent it to me late. But I think
it's 8:30. We're not talking super late.
Well, I mean, in the process of the last time I saw you was 7 days. You sent it to me on day 6 at night. It's late, whatever. Let's not argue. We throw our time to argue.
No, yeah, I don't have to argue about it. I just thought it was interesting.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't. Have you never seen like that kind of marketing scheme before?
What you're referencing, I mean, that goes way back, right?
Well, I mean, yeah, that was an example I used. I only use that example in particular because it's all the way back in the 70s.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, is there an example of utilizing social media when they're in character? Like, does Chris Hemsworth, I'd never seen him appearing as Thor in commercials for the Loki television series.
Didn't the Avengers do a bunch of like car insurance spots during Infinity War, where like Benedict Cumberbatch was in the middle of blah 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 saving insurance, people from Thanos' children or something like that. I know for a fact that I don't know if they were actually interacting with it or if they were intersplicing clips from, but I mean, yeah. But I've seen this a lot though.
Okay.
I've seen people show up, dressed as their particular character to hawk a.
I get it. I'm not talking about necessarily hawking a product. I think it's more about how meta it was in terms of, first of all, doing a fan reaction video, which I think is a very pop culture thing to do, right? I mean, people have made their living now on YouTube doing fan reaction videos. You know what I mean? Like, so there's something about, Deadpool criticizing Ryan Reynolds, which he does all the time, which is part of the character, right? I mean, he's broken the fourth wall before numerous times. But then you also have Korg, who's the voice of Taika Waititi, criticizing Taika Waititi, or that guy looks real bad. Like he actually says that, oh, he looks like a real villain. Oh, because he's in he's an actor in Free Guy. So there's something interesting about it. I don't know. I found it fascinating.
I've just seen like I guess I'm, because I've seen like Anthony Daniels, pop up as C-3PO like 100 years, trying.
But is he ever criticizing Anthony Daniels?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I don't know if he's criticizing Anthony Daniels, but sometimes he criticizes the movie that he's talking about. Or he says something mean about Vader or something like that. I mean, I've seen it done. All right, but I understand what you're saying. I get what you're saying.
I thought it was a neat. It was a neat thought in terms of watching this.
Understood.
Will we get Deadpool? Probably not for a while. I think it's pretty clear that Marvel has a plan, and it was addressed in the Loki season finale. Which we will talk about next. We've got lots of things. We've got Black Widow to go through. We've got Dan Gottlieb coming on the show, friend of the show. He's going to talk about his new film as well too. We are jam-packed. We will be coming at you next. I'm going to throw this out to you, Hassan, and you're gonna pick. Are we going Loki next, or are we going Black Widow next? Your answer when we come back.
Oh, all right.
Welcome back to the Rogue Wave podcast, frequency for all things pop culture. Okay, last segment. We just talked briefly about Deadpool. This segment coming up, again, it's an MCU double feature. Which one do you want to tackle? Do you want to tackle Black Widow, or do you want to tackle Loki season finale? Now, season finale obviously was this morning or 3:00 in the morning last night. Black Widow's been out for a weekend. Black Widow
came first week.
What's that? We'll do Black Widow? I can't hear you.
Why don't we do Black Widow?
There you go. Couldn't hear you. It's innocent. Don't give me a face.
You know why you can't hear me? Because you're always running your mouth. Well, I'm
Well, that's
talking.
possible too. I'm not going to discount that possibility that is also the reason I couldn't hear you.
I think it's more than a possibility at this point.
Do you think? I think I just got to turn my speakers up a little bit more and then I can hear you. Okay. So Black Widow finally hit theaters. And I say finally, obviously, because unexpected coronavirus intervention last year pushed it all the way back to 2021. And it not only did it perform well from a audience perspective, but from a financials perspective, it broke, post-pandemic box office records. So previously held by F9, made about 80 million in theaters, which was great.
Yeah.
It also made additional, I think, close to 80 in the Disney Plus premiere slot. Now, you chose to watch it in the Disney Plus premiere slot. What was your experience watching this film that way versus me? I did it in the theaters, and I'll tell you what my experience was after, but I'm curious.
How can I know what my experience is versus your
No. I'm asking you, what was your experience watching a debut MCU film from home?
I thought it was pretty awesome. I woke up, I don't know, early in the morning, like 8 or 9 in the morning, and I was able to watch an A-list, brand new premiere movie, in the comfort of my own home without having to deal with travel, or dealing with any of the other pitfalls of going to the movie theater to see something. So I thought it was great. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the experience of watching it at that capacity. I also enjoy the experience of watching it exactly when I felt like watching it, as opposed to someone else's time schedule.
That's true. And what's funny about the new system that we have too, where or I don't want to say it's a new system because it might be a temporary thing, although the money it made kind of indicates that, this premiere pass idea is here to stay. It was an interesting thing to watch this film, but it be a prequel where it kind of fit in between films. And now, obviously, spoilers, if anyone hasn't seen Endgame, we know the Black Widow is obviously not she's not making it. And it was evidence in the end credit scene when we see her tombstone. Or they show her tombstone in the end credit scene. So we obviously know how it ends. What was fascinating to me is it was great to be back in theaters. That was the first thing. It was actually excellent to experience it. I saw a 12:30 showing, and it was a pretty packed theater, and that was pretty cool. Mainly because now what they've done with the AMC theaters anyway is, you get the recliner seats. There was spacing kind of going on. You don't feel like you're on top of one another anyway. At least in the AMC theaters that I've been to in the last few years, they've done a nice job of, kind of creating a good atmosphere to sit and watch a movie. The surround sound was great. The actual visceral experience of it was great. But what was funny about it was, because this was nudged in, and because we know there's no Black Widow 2, or at least there's no Black Widow 2 beyond where the story goes beyond Avengers Endgame, I actually felt like I was watching a movie I had just missed. Like I had just missed it. Like this came out. I feel like it came out 5 years ago, and I just happened to be now watching it in the theaters. It was a weird, surreal kind of feeling. Whereas I think if I was home, it would be like watching Ant-Man. I never watched Ant-Man in the theaters, right? I only watched Ant-Man after the fact when it had come out, because I didn't really, we weren't doing a podcast back then. And I was like, I can wait on Ant-Man. And I did. And it's one of those things like, all right, now I've watched it. That's great. Now it fits into the canon. Did that feel like that for you watching it at home? No, it felt like something brand new.
Did it feel like what? Did I feel like I was
in the past a little bit? Like that's actually where I felt. I actually felt like I was in the past a little bit. I actually felt like this was 2017 or something like that. But it was a weird thing because I'm in the theaters. I wouldn't have watched. It's like, wow, how did I miss this when it first came out in theaters? And why am I in a theater watching it? You're at home watching something. Did it feel as if you were, you said it was something brand new and fresh, but did it feel brand new being at home?
I said it felt brand new and fresh, right? So yeah, I guess it did, didn't it? Or you're saying I shouldn't have? Or
No, I'm not saying you should have. I'm asking you, like, was there anything where you're watching? Was there any point where you're watching this where it just felt like this is something you missed versus it being like a brand new movie? Like almost, like when you have or was it watching like Rogue One for you? Where Rogue One takes place in between.
Yes.
Okay. Because I didn't get that feeling from this. I didn't get the Rogue One feeling. I got more of like, well, it's weird. I feel like I just missed this movie. Like it didn't feel like it didn't offer anything to the same way that Rogue One to me felt like a brand new story that fit within a pocket. This more or less felt like I just kind of missed this. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I just saying it was a weird feeling.
I know, but it's just a unique feeling to you.
Yes.
I don't know how to. If you tell me that's how you felt about it, then yeah, all right, that's the thing. So did that ruin the experience for you, or?
No, it didn't ruin it. It definitely felt different, right? It was a different experience watching.
Well, aren't they all supposed to feel different every time you see a movie? Aren't you supposed to feel differently about it? If you felt the same watching a movie every time you saw a new movie, then that would probably be the fault of the medium, or the material, as opposed to who you are, and
I think the experience though feels similar, and that's not to say that has nothing to do with the content of the movie. The content of the movie was highly enjoyable, right? I mean, I think ultimately that there was a lot of flaws in the villain, in the big bad villain at the end. I had a lot of questions about him and Red Guardian. I don't understand why Red Guardian was.
All right, now we're talking about the movie itself now, as opposed to okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I thought it was a good enough segue to get into the actual movie.
Yeah, I'm sure you felt that way. Go ahead.
But as much as I enjoyed, or as much as I had questions about the villain, and as much as I had some questions about his involvement with Red Guardian, and a lot of that didn't quite make a whole lot of sense. I felt like the dynamic between Black Widow and her sister, and the quasi mom and Red Guardian as the father figure was enough for me to enjoy the film as a whole. What was your reaction?
Yeah, I thought they were. The only issue I really had was that with all the, they spent so much time like milking a lot of bluster out of Red Guardian, and they never got to show him like have a triumphant moment. So that was my kind of only issue. But yeah, I thought, of course it's David Harbour and it's Rachel Weisz and it's like Scarlett Johansson. So of course I'm gonna and Ray Winstone, even though I do get it, but I mean Marvel always has problems with their villains, because Marvel is a very hero driven medium. It's a very superhero driven medium.
Yeah.
And each of these superheroes always runs into like a little bit of an obstacle. But I think who's the most powerful Marvel cinematic villain, with the exception of Thanos?
I was just going to say Thanos.
Loki.
It's got to be Loki at this point, right? Or the most memorable, right?
Well, he's the long running one, right? Yeah. So like he's the only one that we get so much screen time with that we actually understand that person, to the point where they gave him his own show.
Yeah.
But it's not a villains driven, it's not a villains driven media. And to be honest with you, a lot of the Marvel villains, even in a comic book form, are just temporary obstacles for our heroes. They're not, there's not a lot long-term investment in villains. It's not like there's no equivalent of a Marvel Joker.
Right.
Where there's long-term investment into the psychology of that particular character and the pathology of what his worldview is, right? We don't really have deep dives or deep studies into that. So you may have an equivalent of that of a villain, like you'll have the Green Goblin for Spider-Man. But have we dove really deeply over the 50 or so years that the Green Goblin's been around into like what makes the Green Goblin? Or do we basically get the same answer all the time? It's like, Osborn kind of overdid it and then, became this. And I mean, that's about it. That's as deep as it gets, right? There's no there's no look back into who, the Joker was in as many incarnations, whether it's Jack Napier or it's, whatever you want to call it, and whether or not the Joker was a gangster or a petty thief, or was he blackmailed or cajoled into that job that he did where he accidentally fell into a vat of chemicals and he came out as like, I mean, there's a lot of stuff there. It's just so much stuff to it that some of the details in the retelling are changed, but it's ultimately the same story. And Marvel really doesn't have villains like that. I mean, Thanos, Thanos' original motivation was trying to get a date with death. That's how deep it went. It didn't really go deeper than that. The movies had to give
the movies actually gave him
level
more
of depth.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, we don't really have that. So I don't mind the Ray Winstone. I'm kind of used to that. Like, okay, he's the heavy. They don't really have villains. They have heavies. This guy is a heavy for this particular story. And then we get the hero's got to defeat or come to terms with the heavy in some way. And then the hero gets to move on to the next thing. And that's pretty much the Marvel format. So, with that in mind, and if you're going to get a heavy, get Ray Winstone, do that.
No, he was, the performance was really good. I was curious as to if he can train all these female assassins and they're in the building. Why does he even need guards? Like, why wouldn't they just be the guards? Like, I wasn't sure about that one.
Sometimes your female assassins go bad. I don't know.
There were like little things. I'm like,
why
man,
are there different kinds of stormtroopers? Why not just use one kind of stormtrooper for every occasion?
Yeah. Oh, that's true. Well, why would there be different stormtroopers? That's the best part.
It's just an aesthetic.
Yeah.
Because once the Black Widows, spoiler, once they all, got woken up from their trances, you still needed a squad of baddies for the heroes to kill, because you can't be killing Black Widows if you're
right. I know. That was.
So that's probably why. That's probably a problem they came across in the design stage. It's like, okay, well, we're just going to need some generic faceless villains so that we can shoot a whole bunch of people, because it doesn't make any sense for for Scarlett Johansson to mow down a room full of people if she's there to save them. So,
yeah. Let me ask you the big question too that I think people were asking online afterwards. The Red Guardian by far was just extremely enjoyable, right? I mean, he was an enjoyable, affable guy, even though he was doing really horrible things, but he seemed to, even his motivation for doing horrible things was like, all right, he's crazy, but that's his thing. I get it. He talks about fighting Captain America. Did you in your head try to piece together the MCU timeline to see if he could have actually fought Captain America at any point? Because everyone keeps talking about whether or not he did. Have you weighed in your mind about whether or not that is true, or he was just kind of telling a fib?
Well, there have been various different Captain Americas. They already established that with Falcon and Winter Soldier. So it's very possible that he fought Captain America. Or, unless, they didn't really do a deep dive into, Red Guardian's background. Does he go back to the 40s? Is he, because of the super soldier serum, is he that old? It didn't seem to be that old, right? So we're talking the 60s, the 50s and the 60s, if not the 60s, right? The 60s, early 70s, right? In a timeline for Scarlett Johansson to be how old she is. So, or the 80s. We have to be talking about the 80s.
Yeah.
So, if he's talking about it when he was in his prime was the 70s and the 80s, he must have been either fighting a different Captain America or he was lying. I'm pretty sure, because of the way Marvel utilizes its material, that he's not lying, and that we're going to discover that there were several Captain Americas.
I'm curious about that.
He fought someone that he thought was Captain America, that he thought was the Steve Rogers Captain America, but he actually fought another Captain America.
Or it begs the question. We just always assumed in First Avenger he waked up. See, that's the non-drinking brain. That he woke up in 2011 or 2012 with the Avengers movie. Is it possible? It's my Ancient Aliens talk. Is it possible that he had woken up prior to that?
No, I don't know. Maybe. But I mean, it's also possible when he went back in time and stayed with Peggy Carter that he still continued to be, Captain America. I guess. I don't know. I'm pretty sure we'll find out. It's kind of like why it took 5 years to bring everybody back between Infinity War and Endgame, and they've made quite a lot of story material out of those 5 years. Even though you said it was stupid for them.
Oh, I still don't like it. I still don't like the decision of 5 years.
Yeah, but you're wrong about that. That's clear.
I think you could have done the same story material within 1 year.
But why would you have to?
I think because I think what it does.
You can do whatever you want.
What it does is, I think it opens up a can of worms in terms of things that don't make sense. They literally did it just so Tony Stark could have a daughter. I think that was the motivation. And then the after effect of that was, oh, hey, by the way, we have 5 years to play with. But but you know how eagle-eyed fandom can be. They're going to be pointing out these things because it happens. It's just it happens. It's going to be
something that doesn't make sense because of the blip.
What's that?
Name something that doesn't make sense because of the blip.
Oh, well, I can't. I haven't been drinking this week, so clearly I don't have my wits about me. I can't do it. No, I'll think about that. I'll think about something that doesn't necessarily make sense, because there was definitely a couple things in Endgame where I sat there going, that doesn't quite make sense. I'd have to go rewatch Endgame, and I'd have to sit through.
Well, no. We're not talking about whether Endgame makes sense. We're talking about whether
No, there was things, but that's my point though. There were things already right off the bat in Endgame that didn't make sense, and 5 years was one of the reasons behind it. Where I'm sitting there going, I'm not quite sure. Look, I'm not saying that they can't make positive storytelling or story ideas based on the 5 years. Of course they can, and they do it very well. I'm not, that was never the thing. It was more of, man, you're opening a can of worms by having that stretch of a time. And there were things in Endgame that didn't make sense because of that stretch of time for me.
Yeah, I just requested that you name. All right, we'll talk about it later, I guess.
I'll have to dive deeper into that.
Okay.
You sent it to me. You sent it to me right now. I have to think about that. I just remember at the time there were definitely things about Endgame.
That's your point of contention. I figured you'd had a couple of examples to back that up. Obviously not.
I didn't think we'd bring that up today. I didn't have my cheat sheet ready. I'll put it together.
Gotcha.
Segment next week. Problems with Endgame.
We'll see.
By this guy. And number one on the list is not the pose either. It's up there though, but not that. It's not that.
Yeah, I don't know what 5 years has to do with that at all.
So one of the things it doesn't.
Neither.
This is one of my independent problems with Endgame. One of the things
that wasn't the point of the discussion
about Black Widow that people talked about. We touched upon this a couple weeks ago when the reviews started coming out, and it was the idea that this movie is too little, too late. Right? I think someone even had that as the cover of their, or the title of their article. But I did find one. It was from The Verge, and this is post the movie coming out, so it's not it's not a review. It's more an opinion. It's an editorial. It's by a writer named Alex Kranz. She's the managing editor for The Verge. And she writes, "It's too late for Black Widow. Marvel's latest film thoroughly skewers the franchise's portrayal of Black Widow. Far too late." She writes, "It's hard to be a fan of the Marvel MCU's Black Widow. She sticks out like a sore thumb. The storylines have been so heavily critiqued, they've turned into a punchline on their own. In Age of Ultron, she was crammed into a ham-fisted romance with Hulk. She's repeatedly mocked in which she has repeatedly mocked in her titular film Black Widow. Her big swan dive into oblivion and Endgame for the sake of her boys. The first heroine in the MCU, Natasha, often feels like a big joke, and this attempt to rehabilitate her posthumously feels far too little, far too late." I right off the bat, I got to take a little exception. I never felt like she was a joke. I know there's been a lot of talk on social media regarding what, like, Tony Stark's comment in Iron Man 2, right? Like, I want one of that, and how she's very sexualized. They do poke fun of it, Florence Pugh, which, by the way, she's amazing. I got to tell you, I enjoyed her the most, I think, out of everyone. She's just so likable by the end of especially by the end of the movie. You just, I don't know, like, you fall in love with her in a way, not in like creepy Florence Pugh.
I do, way. Or do you?
I think I do. And I think everyone does. I think there's a rating that says, who do you like the most in this? And she's there. So I'm gonna use that as the
because
preponderance.
I could read off the ratings of Thor, Dark World, and Ragnarok. Do you have your figures in front of you?
I do.
Okay.
Who is most likable? If you type it into Google, in Black Widow.
In the process of typing in things that you can actually verify,
Florence Pugh comes right up.
See that
there she is.
You can see that Thor is 77%. The Dark World is 66%.
Yeah, but that just means people who use the site though. That's a flawed stat regardless. That's a flawed stat.
No, they fixed that. They fixed the aggregator.
Oh, they did
because of review bombing. So they fixed those aggregators.
They told you they fixed it.
Okay, so I'm just gonna believe. I'm not gonna believe my lying ears, right? Okay.
Who did you feel was the most enjoyable character in the Black Widow?
That wasn't your point. You were in the midst of trying to make another point because of the article. Don't get distracted.
I'm just saying. I loved Florence Pugh. I just thought she was
fine.
Great. Yeah.
Okay. But you were making another point. So the discussion was going in a completely different direction.
I know, until someone interrupted me. I don't understand why that happened.
I didn't. You said you brought up Florence
I just said, by the way, I loved Florence Pugh in this movie.
Yeah, and then and then you said she was, and everybody loved her. And I'm like, did they? I don't know about that. And that was all. Go on with it. So
I have to say, I never found that Natasha Romanoff was a big joke. I don't understand. Now, Alex is a woman. So I'm, just to specify that the writer is female and she's writing from a female point of view. And I respect that. And I understand that maybe that's how she felt. I always did find it funny that the Black Widow never got any kind of solo treatment until now. I do think there's a validity to that. But she kind of goes on. She says the film itself is the filmmakers speaking through Yelena, who is Florence Pugh, chastising a decade of fetishization by Jon Favreau, Joss Whedon, and the Russo brothers, while neatly establishing that Yelena will be different. When she's talking, she's making fun of the fact that she's always posing. I thought it was, look, I think I love how people like to course correct. I like that people who typically were not the demographic that enjoyed comic book films in the 2000s, all of a sudden who do now, where it becomes a thing that women now kind of wear on their sleeve and say, oh no, I've always loved this stuff. This has always been great. Well, it's not necessarily true either, because the facts and the figures for box office never spoke to it. You can make the argument.
Facts and figures.
Oh yeah, like Elektra, Catwoman bombed, Elektra bombed.
Well, those are bad movies also.
Right. You can make the argument the movies were not very good, and so why would females want it? But again,
I mean, in general, like, you can't say that these movies bombed because no women went to see them. They might have bombed because they were bad movies.
Yeah, but you can even go back so far as Tomb Raider, which did financially well, but was clearly marketed toward, young teenage boys, right? I mean, I think that
doesn't mean that women didn't go see them.
No, I know, but I would say that they were not made for young teenage women necessarily. In fact, I always kind of cringe when in the comic book industry you'd have, kind of over sexualized characters, but you kind of sit there and go, well, I understand though, because it's 14
what would it
boys.
Entail to make a movie specifically for women as opposed to for boys?
The over sexualization is what defines it, I think, as
maybe.
Who are you marketing it to? Who's this movie made for? I mean, people love to talk about that on social media now, right? Like, oh, well, this is not made for you. This was, they talk about that comics are for everyone. Well, these comics are not made for you. These comics are made for someone else. That's okay. I mean, you can definitely do that. But I find it interesting that like 10 years later, people have these opinions as if 10 years ago was the same status quo as what it is today. I think you had in the 2000s also, you had a sexualization of women that were encouraged by women celebrities. You had the Britney Spears, you had the Christina Aguileras, you had,
which is what I say. Like, how do we know that those things were not marketed for women? Very
possible too. Yeah. I mean, just on a personal note, I know a lot of, women friends of mine are like, no, I like when they show sexy women on screen. Like it actually makes them, that they like that. People
so
commented
that kind of skews your figures a little bit then, that assertion. If women are saying that, yeah, no, I was kind of into this even before the course correction,
right?
That kind of skews the figures as to the point where certain movies did well or did not do well because of the portrayal of the women in that, or
They
whether
could,
or not.
well, it doesn't necessarily have to contradict it, because it still could be marketed toward 14-year-old boys. It could merely be something that women also found interesting, but it wasn't directed toward them.
Right.
Or at least it's not directed toward them the way it is now.
Your point of contention was that because it was marketed towards 14-year-old boys, and obviously it was the audience of 14-year-old boys and no women were involved, which we don't have the aggregation on that to know it for certain. So like, it is what it is. But look, I don't know whether or not this movie did anything for the author of the article.
Right.
Her opinions about how she felt about the film are valid.
Yes.
I don't I don't necessarily see it that way. I don't understand. Well, it's not that I don't understand. There is a tendency to take everything that came before and just to say it was bad, because it was a before time kind of situation, and to not see any of the nuances in it, or not see any of the good that was done in it. I've had that argument about many things recently, as a matter of fact. So I mean, I don't know about right or wrong. It's agree or disagree, right? I don't agree necessarily. I do think that the character was sexualized, and I do understand if that's viewed to be problematic. I can understand that, compared to what the character has become.
Yeah.
What was the character always done wrong throughout the entirety of the MCU? I don't agree. Doesn't necessarily mean I think that person is wrong in saying so. I just don't agree. I applied value to her being in these films. I applied value to her character.
Right.
Now, if the argument is that their character was portrayed with no value, or no one valued this character other than as a sexual object, I would disagree with that assertion.
Yeah.
Just from my own perspective. But I don't know whether or not. I know well enough to know not to disagree with the possibility that it sent all the wrong messages.
Yeah, and I guess what and you touched upon it for me is the course correction aspect to it, right? 10 years from now, we might have a completely different mindset. In the 2000s, a lot of the mindset, at least in what was being marketed, was sexualization was female empowerment. Female empowerment now looks different than that. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm not saying it was 100%. It was just, there was a lot of marketing.
I don't know if I would say the conclusion was that sexualization was female empowerment. I think one of the tenets of it was that there is empowerment in sexualization.
Right.
It doesn't always have to be degrading.
Right.
But I don't know if I would label that as one of the definitions of female empowerment is sexualization.
No, I'm not saying it is. I'm saying that was.
I don't know if that was the conclusion of that time.
At the time period, I think with a lot of the female pop singers is really where I draw.
Yeah, but that's not all of.
No, I'm not saying it's all. I'm not saying. I literally just said that doesn't mean that it is the end all be all. It's not the totalization.
I know what you said. I'm not disagreeing with the way you said it. It's just, I'm saying, you said, one of the things from that era, from the previous decade, was sexualization. It was female empowerment. I disagree with that statement. I think one of the values that were discovered was that there can be female empowerment in sexualization, but I would not label a sexualization as female empowerment primarily. That's
fair enough. Like I can go along with that. To my point, it's not the end all be all of female empowerment. If that's how it came across, that's not what I was saying. However, that was definitely one aspect that women of the time could lean on, especially celebrity women, in interviews would talk about that. How. Yeah,
I think you still can.
They can, but I think it's different now, isn't it? I think there's definitely a different tone to the masses and what female empowerment, is in mass consumption, I would say.
I think that, all right, maybe so, but I think the conclusion is that there's female empowerment wherever a woman finds her empowerment.
Sure.
I think it's a broad spectrum now, more so than any one focal point, which is a mistake that society makes all the time as to what,
Yep.
It gives you a very narrow window and says, can you shine through this window? And then
right.
and then tells you that that's your window, but we all know that's BS anyway. So
yeah, no. The only other thing I do agree with, though, in this article is she says it's a pity Natasha is still dead, as Scarlett Johansson is done with the franchise, because for a few minutes we got what we'd been promised 12 years ago when Emily Blunt was first rumored to be joining the nascent MCU as Black Widow. The movie was fun, and there are moments in there that are even excellent, but it all feels far too little, far too late. It does kind of suck where this was an enjoyable movie. Like, they really, to me, they made something that was worth going back to theaters for myself. It was something that, again, it was a female empowerment movie without ever getting preachy or beating things over the head with the message. There was no message. It stood upon itself as something that was female empowerment by just being a really good movie and having solid.
Now that you've explained that was female empowerment done right.
I don't know. I would sit there and say that female empowerment changes with the times, and for the time it is coming out right now, it's fantastic. It stands on itself. It speaks for itself. The movie speaks for itself. There was no, I was sitting there. I mean, I know I had heard some complaints about maybe the villain was a little preachy and a little messagey, but I never got that from him. I never got that from the end of it. I just got a terrible human being who.
So you would disagree with that then?
Yeah, I would disagree
because you didn't feel that way about it.
Yeah, I don't feel that there was any preachiness to it, really. I didn't feel like there was nothing hitting me over the head with any messages. It was just a really solid movie starring female characters. And that's, to me, the best way to approach that topic.
Yes, the best way for them to find their own empowerment is to do it in a manner that's really innocuous.
No, it's to create good storytelling. It's to create good work. That's, at the end of the day, for me, what denotes that. What do you guys think? Did Black Widow hit the right notes for you? Are you sad to see Scarlett Johansson gone? Are you excited for Florence Pugh showing up in future MCU films, as was hinted? We'll discuss all that, and we'll tie it into the Loki season finale, which just aired today, how it's all connected, and how Loki gave fans exactly what they wanted and what I did not want. Coming up next. Welcome back to the Rogue Wave podcast. All right. I mean, we have so much today. We have Dan Gottlieb, a good friend of yours who is a filmmaker. It's in TV and cosplay. We have him coming up next segment. We just did Black Widow. We're going to dive into the other big news of the day. And again, Marvel, separate it out next time. White meat. Separate it out.
They don't want to.
For us.
They're like, you know what Marvel's saying? No.
Well, do you know what?
Basically what they're saying.
It's a great segue into the Loki discussion. So, spoilers if you haven't seen the season finale. It was on at 3 a.m. I don't understand what you guys were doing.
Yeah, what's your problem?
I was up crack of dawn at 6:30, working out, watching it on my phone. It's very exciting. Season finale airs, and this is Marvel saying yes. So, what did I say to you last week? Do you remember? Because we played If I Were the Showrunner, how I would not end it. How would I have not ended it?
Oh man, I don't even remember. Tell me how you said
all of a sudden, all of a sudden you get asked a question on the spot and you don't have your stuff in front of you. Let's see how.
But I admit, I'm not making a big, I'm not flailing my arms and making a big production out of it. Flail. I just said I don't remember. You flailed. You flailed.
I look like Team America. Remember that in Team America?
Yes. Please stop doing that.
Actually, now I can't stop. Now that you
No,
find
I
it so
know. I
hilarious.
know. It's bad.
That was holy cow.
I
If we
shouldn't
ever
have
get
laughed.
it, this is like our safe word. You realize, like, if we ever get too deep
No,
into
don't
something, I'll
say-
just start doing this.
Don't say safe word. I'll just glare disapprovingly. I should have just continued to glare disapprovingly, and then you wouldn't have done it. But all right,
I said
never mind.
I
This is
was,
why I never smile, because that's all people do after that is just repeat their behavior over and over again and make it happen. So
this is what I said. I said I did not want it to be Kang the Conqueror. I did not want it to be something outside of what we were kind of addressed.
Isn't it ironic that now that you wanted, not you personally, but in general, you wanted Mephisto, you didn't get Mephisto. You wanted, basically Steve Rogers or whoever, and you didn't get Steve Rogers. Then they say maybe Kang, and you're like, I don't want Kang, and you get Kang. They're doing it on purpose. They do it on purpose.
Right, which I thought was interesting. Overall, I enjoyed the show. And next week we're going to do maybe a little Loki posthumous. We'll try our trailer Truth to Trash. New.
Can we please? It's posthumous, not posthumous.
Is it posthumous?
Yes, posthumous.
Posthumous.
Yes. When someone does something posthumously, that's a thing.
It's not posthumous.
It is not posthumous.
No, I didn't say posthumous. I said posthumous. All right, I'll believe you. I'll Google you because I don't 100% believe you, but I will.
You never heard of someone doing something posthumously?
I just never read it like that.
Okay.
All right. Look, you learn something new every day.
You get a posthumous medal. You've been killed in action, and you get the Medal of Honor. They've given you the medal posthumously.
I've never heard anyone say it though.
All right, fair enough.
I know the word. Obviously, I used the word. But I've only seen it in, at least that I can recall. Anyway,
and you know what? The jury is out. It's one of those words that can be pronounced in several different ways.
Yeah,
I have just always heard it pronounced posthumous, but
you're probably right. I won't sit there and say you're not right.
But I actually have heard English people who invented the language say posthumous. So
we're going to experience this in September when.
But they also say aluminium
comes out.
But they also say aluminium, so F them.
No, that's not right at all.
Because it's aluminum. Darn it.
Do you know if anybody's from upstate, they say bagel?
No.
Yeah.
No.
You're talking like the Rochester area of New York. like I know a few people from Rochester, and they're like, I love bagels, and I'm like, what the hell is a bagel?
Do you stick a swing at them for doing that to you?
It's
you're from New York, man. You're obligated to take a swing.
They call sodas pop up there.
F them.
It's a whole other world in Rochester because it's really cold. So they live by their own rules.
I like the cold, anyway, though. I'm gonna move up there. But go ahead. Yeah,
you would like that. Back to Loki. As a whole, I enjoyed the series. I really did. Tom Hiddleston is just very magnetic. I thought Sylvie was a great supporting character in this as well too. In some cases, she was the star. As Loki, which again, I thought the two of them were very compelling. Still had the ick factor. So again, spoilers if you haven't seen it. They do manage to kiss in this one, and I don't like it. Not because I don't understand it.
We live in the Jaime and Cersei Lannister world, man. That's not the strangest thing we have seen.
No, it's not. It's not. I get it. I get it. But there was some sort of like.
It is a little weird. It is
weird
factor
strange to it, right?
Yeah, I did like the line she said. I thought it was way deep. It sounded, it's a throwaway line that sounded deeper than it was, and it resonated. She says, "Why don't we think the same on this?" Like just like in their conflict at the end. But it just brought it back to home that they are theoretically the same person.
Yeah.
Just with the difference of a chromosome.
Yeah.
But I thought that as dialogue goes, because there's it's hit or miss with me. Some of the stuff that they talk about, some of the ways they talk about. I think tonally, the show still struggled a little bit, and this is my opinion because I still very much enjoyed it. But these days, you can't really say anything negative without being a hater.
Yeah.
but I still very much enjoyed it. I think it struggled a little bit to try to figure out exactly what kind of show it wanted to be, what kind of tone it wanted to take.
Yeah.
And now that we've had all 6 episodes, I can actually react to the whole thing as to whether or not I did enjoy it as a whole. I do think 6 episodes is way too damn short for a concept that they were trying to push. And I think that the cliffhanger that they ended it on was very unsatisfying on a personal level, even though it sets up a bunch of new things and that's going to ring out and resonate throughout all phase 4 of Marvel. So great, good on them, and good on them for a new, basically sort of setting up the new Thanos. I guess they want to turn Kang into the new Thanos, or an element of what will be the new big bad.
Which the character itself is absolutely of the Thanos level in terms of the comic book source material. So it makes total sense. 2 things struck me though about the ending. One, the fact that, and I saw this tweet later on, and they were like, Spider-Man Homecoming was, or Spider-Man No Way Home was trending after this. The whole series to me now feels, it's weird. I actually have a double-sided feeling about this, right? The whole series to me in one side of things now feels like a giant advertisement for Spider-Man, for the Spider-Man movie, the multiverse movie, and things like that. I don't feel like that completely. That's why I have a double-edged feeling about this. Because overall I enjoyed it, but it felt, like you said, felt empty. When they ended on the cliffhanger, I'm like, wait a minute, this was just to set up Kang?
This is the thing, though. Here's the thing, and I don't criticize how you see it or how you experienced it at all. Hold on one second. But I mean, what I've discovered personally for me that I have to do with this stuff is just take it as pieces of information that are essential for whatever I'm, overall, the overall experience of all the MCU, all of it together is the overall experience. If you try to take it movie by movie, segment by segment, if you try to like the article said, which I disagree with, like Black Widow in and of itself, as a movie into itself, if you've been waiting for that movie for a long time, that may or may not be a disappointing experience for you because of the information, because of the movie itself. It didn't showcase correctly. It didn't, it didn't exalt the character in the way that the person had wanted them to, and that's perfectly valid. You can, it's your mythology, it's your headcanon. You do what you need to do with it. But what I have discovered is if you take each and all of it as a whole, and each of it is like a focal point that you're supposed, like a pressure point that you're supposed to press, that you're supposed to get information from, this or that.
Right.
That's the overall experience of it. And what we're doing, and I think we're doing wrong, and the word wrong is incorrect, and I've got no issue with anything else. I'm just saying in general, I think what tends to happen is we tend to think of ourselves in a fixed point of time. This information that we're getting right here and now, is this doing anything for me in the right here and now? And I honestly don't think that this shared universe is designed that way. It's designed for the aggregate. It's an aggregated experience. So whenever Black Widow came out, it doesn't freaking matter. It's whenever you watch it during the series. Whenever you want
that's the feeling I got when watching Black Widow. I said that last segment. That is actually the feeling I got when I watched Black Widow. I felt like I was it didn't feel like any other Marvel movie I had seen before, because it really felt like just something. Oh, I guess I just missed this, and it happens to be playing in theaters. The theater thing was saying.
But I think theoretically you're supposed to take yourself. You're supposed to remove yourself from the equation and just take the information that you're being given and apply it to what you already know, like spackle in a wall, right? So if you want to know what Natasha Romanoff was up to, right after Civil War, here's the information. So now when you put together your fan wiki, these are all pieces that you yourself will be able to put together in it. And I will tell you and we're not going to get into a deep discussion about this. I will tell you from the Star Wars universe, it doesn't matter when I got the prequels, because 10 years on, that's just information that is canon. So who I was or what I thought of the series before I found out the backstory of Anakin Skywalker doesn't really, it doesn't come into play. It doesn't ruin anything for me. Yeah. Right. So I think the same thing will happen with the MCU. I mean, we're 24 movies in. We're probably going to end this thing at 30 to 50 movies, you know, like when they're done, like when phase 5 or whatever they're doing is over, when this whole thing fizzles out, we might be up to 40 to 50 movies by then. I think I think the essence of all those movies are going to be what they are altogether, as opposed to, you know, what happened when each of them was released individually. And I think our challenge is going to be able to, it's going to be being able to see it all as a whole, as opposed to taking it piece by piece.
Well, that's the thing. It's a double-edged take that I have. I thoroughly enjoyed Loki, and at the same time was thoroughly upset at the end because it felt like a commercial for the next movie, which it was one of the things I loved about WandaVision. In that WandaVision was nothing, you know, people kept asking for Mephisto. I thought it'd be cool if they brought him in somehow, but as long as it was organic, but they didn't upset me that he wasn't the big bad villain, because it would make no sense by the point that they got to the end. I'm like, well, no, then there should not be Mephisto there. It doesn't make sense to have Mephisto at this point. So I'm glad they didn't do it in that film. I'm not upset, actually, even though I did say I didn't want them to do Kang, because he didn't outright say he was Kang. It was more like he hinted at Kang, and he hinted at who he was. We
knew that actor was hired to play Kang, theoretically.
Right. So and I also knew when he mentioned he was a conqueror. Yeah, you know, exactly. I said, "Oh, okay. Well, then this is Kang, and he's dressed purple, and it's Kang the Conqueror." So we know it. He's Kang the Conqueror. The little mind twist at the end too, where Owen Wilson's like, "Who are you? Where's your station?" So already the ripple effect of. But again, I don't understand the science of this to begin with, so I just assume that by stabbing Kang in the end, it now has created ripple effects.
Yeah, he kind of explained it, but it was explained in that kind of matrixy, really fast, a lot of information dump, you know. And I mean, you can follow it to the point. The basic point is, if you kill me, everything's going to get worse.
Yes.
But if you don't kill me and take over my, you know, everything stays the same, and you guys get to live a life, right?
Yes.
And those are the two choices. And then, you know, Sylvie obviously just decided, no, I want revenge, and so apparently that's going to set up the multiverse of madness and all this stuff that's coming.
That was my other takeaway, though, too. And this is something huge, and it coincides with the end credit scene at the end of Black Widow too. We had Darren Sanchez on, who is a former Marvel employee, so he's been under, but I want to say behind enemy lines is not true, but he's, you know, in the know, right? So he said to us one time when we were talking WandaVision and the introduction of Quicksilver, and he goes, look, they're not going to introduce mutants. They're not going to do it for some TV show and a streaming service. They're going to do it in the context of a major motion picture. And we all kind of said, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Now, plus with the release of the numbers for Black Widow and how well it did on this premium streaming service, it's showing what Disney and what Marvel now believes is the future. The future is, I don't want to say it's going like the theaters are going away. They're not going away. No, but it used to be theaters, not. TV. Now it's here because they literally are catapulting the next phase of their entire movie operation on their premium streaming service.
And it could reach everybody just as much as the movies have reached everybody. Yes. So like Loki basically isn't just like this kind of, you know, cheap knockoff of a spin-off of the movies. Loki is an essential piece to that will branch out to movies and other television shows.
He will absolutely appear in Doctor Strange. I saw an article today, you know, speculating if that's now the case. But I would wager he will now appear in some way, shape, or form, or be involved in the phase 4, which is great because, again, Tom Hiddleston is great. So able to take somebody who is that charismatic and work him into the storyline that now works. There's a season 2 coming, which I was shocked at as well, too. I was surprised by that, but it also shows that you have a major actor like Tom Hiddleston and a major actor like Owen Wilson are going to be in a this is a TV series. It's a
but that's what I'm saying. It's not a TV series anymore. It's a segmented movie. You know, it's
no, but I'm saying in terms of what the actors, I mean, think about this. 20 years ago, the thought of a major actor being in a TV show for lack of a better term, meant your career as a major movie actor was over and TV was the best you could do. Now it's completely different because of the scope and the grandeur of what you can do with streaming, that not only is the studio pinning it on this streaming, pinning their future revenue on the streaming service, but the actors and actresses themselves are now saying, yes, sign me up. This is just as great as doing a major film. Think about this: Black Widow. Florence Pugh's character they've never done this. They've never done an end credit scene to plug a Disney Plus show before. And they did that in the movie. So to me, these were all major milestones. These were all connected. And again, I have two feelings about the series now. I would still say out of the three, I enjoyed WandaVision the most because it was self-contained, because I thought they handled it. I thought the pacing was great. And I thought the concept was very original, and it all worked together. I would grade them for right now. My experience: WandaVision, then Loki, then Falcon and Winter Soldier. Like if I had to rank them. So, but it's interesting to see. Will you give us your rank, or you're not going to do that? See, look at you. I know. Let's do this before we go to break, though. Days of Futures Past. New little segment idea I came up with. I like this. What were your feelings going into the weekend that you were more excited to see Black Widow or the Loki season finale, or what, if you had to pick one kind of deal going in, and then what were your feelings after? Like which one were you most satisfied with having viewed after?
Yeah. Here's why I hate these. I don't hate them because of the question.
Mm-hmm.
I hate them because of the answer, because the answer is always going to be, and I don't mean it that way. I don't necessarily mean it like I didn't care. I was curious.
That's fine. Curiosity's good. That's good.
Yeah, but I mean, curious. I have the same level of curiosity for everything. Like I have the same level of curiosity for the Bad Batch, that's coming up this week. I'd say the most excited I was, and this is not what your question was, but my biggest excitement was for Infinity War, because I just wanted to see how are you going to do this? You've been promising me this for this long period, almost a decade. How are you going to do this? Are you going to be? I'm sure you'll pull it off, because I've seen a whole bunch of movies. When they pulled off Ant-Man, I was like, these guys can do anything, right? So basically, when it comes to Black Widow, does it hit the Infinity War gauge of excitement? No. Did Loki hit the Infinity War gauge of excitement? No. I was excited for Loki just so we could finish it, so I can make up my mind about the series as a whole when it was finally over. And I was excited to see the Black Widow, because I just want to see, I want to see if I'm still thrilled at watching another, Marvel vehicle, like big budget action vehicle. And I was. So I got what I wanted. But yeah, I don't usually go into things super excited. Like, oh, this
well, no, but you use the word curious. You use the word curious. Which one were you more curious for? What's that?
I was more curious for Black Widow. If I have to put a gauge on it, I was more curious for Black Widow. Like I said, Loki for me, it's a great show. I think it's struggling with what it wants to be. I think it flirts with, it's brilliant. It's already brilliant.
Yeah.
It flirts with greatness, but then certain things just kind of hold it back, And then seeing that last episode, I'm like, yeah, this could have been something else.
Yeah.
And it's just a show. And I don't mean it that way. That's the problem.
Yeah.
I don't have the vocabulary to articulate it, but it's just a show in the sense of, just like X-Men, the first X-Men movie. Okay, this is just the nuance here is this is just live action.
Right.
Here your selling point is, look, it's not that great a movie, but it's the X-Men in real life. Huh? You're gonna come back. So Loki is like, this is high test concept. We're still figuring it out. Please come back next season. But I mean, it flirted with the greatness that it could have been in this season.
Yeah,
It flirted with the kind of greatness that if they had achieved it, you'd be annoyed that there was going to be a next season because it endangers like how great an achievement they had already accomplished. But it is what it is. I was more excited to see Black Widow, but I very much wanted to finish out Loki, and I'm very happy with it. I'm very much enjoyed it.
Yeah,
so it is what it is. Like, but everything is milquetoast. It's so lukewarm. My reaction is like, oh, that was nice. Like having a sandwich, like having a good saying. Hey, that was a delightful sandwich. I feel satiated now on my hunger because I've eaten a delightful sandwich. It's not.
Miguel, you sound smarter now with that up tempo pitch voice right there.
Oh, really? Well,
like now all of a sudden I need to listen to you as if your IQ just went up. It just jumped off like 20 points right there with that voice.
So insulting. You know what?
What do you guys think? I was more curious about Loki going into the weekend. I was not more nonchalant about Black Widow. I came out more satisfied after watching Black Widow than I did Loki. What do you guys think? Give us your take. Comment in the comments field.
Don't tell us what you think.
On Facebook.
We're not interested in your thoughts at all.
When we come back, we got creator Dan Gottlieb coming up talking about awesome stuff, including his charity work, which it's associated through the Marvel Universe. And I think that's one of the most heroic parts
for it.
About the next segment. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Rogue Wave podcast, the frequency for all things pop culture. Happy to welcome Dan Gottlieb on the show. He's a longtime friend of Hassan, and he's also replacing him as the new host of the show starting next week. So we've already established that any friend of Hassan can easily replace him as my co-host. That's essentially what it always comes down to. But no, welcome to the show. Happy to have you on.
Thank you.
Wanted to start with you do a laundry list of really exciting things in the medium, but I thought the one thing that stood out above all is a lot of charity work. You are involved with the Marvel Universe in a really cool way, and it involves dressing up. It's got elements of Marvel, it's got elements of cosplay, but ultimately it's about helping people. Talk to us and tell the audience about the stuff that you do, dressing up as Marvel characters and doing things with different charitable organizations and hospitals.
Sure. Well, many years ago, as Hassan probably knows, I used to work for DC Comics. And as you know, when you work for these organizations, they give you a ton of books. I mean, so many books. And it occurred to me that kids in hospitals really have nothing to do. They're sitting there, they're going through horrible diagnoses and whatnot. Mm-hmm. So I tried to go out of my way to get those books to kids that needed them, so they at least have something to read, something to do. And so it was inclined upon me that I would dress as a character. Now, because I had the background and because I had worked with the organizations, I asked if it was permissible, and they said it was, as long as you say you're a character actor and you're doing it, in the sense of your own reconnaissance, as it were. So me being the perfectionist that I was, I made sure I went out of my way to make the costumes that I had look as film accurate as I possibly could. Mm-hmm. And so it started with Captain America, and I visited it out in Robert Wood, Bristol Myers Squibb pediatrics ward, where I visited a lot of kids. And it was really tough, but we got the books out to them, and I did what I could to be part of their Halloween party, and it was a lot of fun. And I found it sort of snowballed from there because I had made a group on Facebook called Build a Better Captain America, where we helped people learn how to make a better film accurate costume. Because it occurred to me that there was no resources at the time, 5 years ago, to make a suit look as film accurate as you could. So from that, I'm now working with 3 organizations. One is CASA of Lexington, Kentucky, where we actually dress up as characters for the 5K run. Where we
that's cool.
And we do it.
That's got to be hot. I mean, like,
literally, it's in August this year. So I told them, I said, I won't. I was supposed to go as Iron Man. I said, yeah, that's not going to happen. But I did dress. I will dress as Tony Stark and have the arc reactor and all the cool stuff that Tony Stark has. Plus, I'll be bringing my buddy Antonio, who will be Spider-Man.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and he's got the.
So he'll sweat it out.
He can boil. to death, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, he's got no air openings whatsoever. The second organization I work with is the NYPD Fallen Officers Fund. Excuse me. So we visit families that have lost someone in the line of duty.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of kids are left without a parent, so we want to remind them that they are the superheroes. So I usually go visit as Captain America, and I bring a troop of people with me to make their day. Last but not least, I do some additional charity works with the local hospitals here, like Jamaica Hospital, where their ward needs to raise money for non-essential items, because people seem to think, oh, well, they have their monitors, they have their beds, they have their pillows. What about resource materials? What about TVs? What about these things are not funded by the hospitals? So we go out of our way to help raise money to get those non-essential items to the kids and make their stay just a little bit better. We also make it a habit to visit not just during holidays, because everybody seems to think Christmas is the only time you visit. And that's not the sense. You need to make sure these kids know that they are cared for all year round, and it helps the recovery process a whole lot better.
How involved is Marvel in this? Is it Marvel sanctioned? Is it something where they're not even aware of this?
Sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't. I did have one year where Marvel found out what I was doing and brought me on board as their Captain America for Jacob Javits. They did the New York Comic Con, and I was the advertised Captain America.
Oh, cool.
I did. But honestly, they don't really care so much. Again, as long as we're spreading goodwill and we're doing it in a legitimate fashion, you're backed by a major organization. In this case, I'm backed by the NYPD. So they don't care, because they know I'm doing it in a sense of protecting their brand and not representing myself as Marvel.
So you mentioned the cosplay stuff. How extensive do you do your cosplay work at different conventions? I know you mentioned also that you're going to be going back to the cons now and judging some contests and whatnot. It sounds like you're pretty involved in the cosplay world.
While I'm very much involved, I don't tend to dress up too often because usually I do it if I'm, again, sponsored by an organization. If I'm going to put that much work into a suit, I really need to know that it serves a purpose and it is something. And I'm not bashing anybody who
you got canceled. It's over. You've been canceled already.
I'm always happy to see new costumes, and I'm always inspired by them, but I need a bigger a purpose, I guess, behind it for me to really do it.
Sure.
And not to sound terrible, but it's like you wear that Captain America suit in 80-degree weather. You're sacrificing something, because it's really, it leaves you.
Shows you the dedication that some of these guys have, right?
I mean, my knees stopped working after a while when I was so dehydrated from that suit. But
in addition to cosplay, though, I mean, you're also a filmmaker. You mentioned you work at DC Comics. You're a creator. Talk to us about the film project that you're working on right now. It's called I Am Omega. It really the graphics look amazing. We're actually showing up on screen right now.
Yeah, it's not really a film project. It's a TV pitch. So it's one of those things where we put together a sizzle reel so they can kind of see what we were going for. But ultimately, it's about a renegade angel who has seen and done too much. A guardian angel who has watched and seen endless amounts of humanity die. Just endless amounts of death. And while the other angels seem to shrug it off like, oh, that's just humans, Omega looks at it and goes, no, this is horrible. Why do I have to keep on watching this and being part of this? And he finds a way to end it all and could succeed.
And
sounds
you
like
mentioned
Hassan's buddy, right?
You mentioned it's a TV project, but it looks like something that could cross over very easily into other mediums. Like it could be a comic book first. Have you thought about doing that, or is that?
Yes and no, because it's a very elaborate storyline, and that's why we're putting out the book next year, because we want people to be able to read the concept and learn all about it and see what we were going for, because the sizzle only gives you a slight idea. But we do touch upon, there will be a portion of it referred to as the Archangel War, where once Omega starts, causing his shenanigans, the Archangels take notice of it and they realize it's that serious that they have to intervene.
What's the process of doing a pitch? Like how much goes into it? I don't think people are really, it's kind of inside baseball stuff, but I don't know if people understand like how much kind of goes into these kind of things.
It's a lot of work. You're sacrificing a lot of time, a lot of energy to get the pitch even in front of somebody. It took a year.
Yeah.
It literally took a year. And the thing is that you have to have contacts on the inside. You have to keep on pushing. You have to send them corporate gifts. You have to let them know that it's still around. And then funny enough, when the pandemic hit, our contact left. So we were then having to start from zero
Square
and
one
all over again.
Yep.
So that's what I was saying, is that the BBC showed some interest, and we actually had some of the people from Game of Thrones see the concept that we were doing. They liked it. But again, it's about getting in front of a producer or a director, and it takes forever for them to care.
Yeah.
So that's why we're making sure that there's constant forms of media being created for it. So they say, oh, what's going on with this? What's going on? It hasn't gone away. It's still it's building an audience, so on and so forth. So that's why we thought the books would be the next step.
That's honestly, that's one of the biggest things that when people ask me about, how do I do this? What should I be doing? And as comic book creators, I always sit there and say, you always need to have the next thing already done. And that's something I actually got asked on a podcast. What advice would you give your younger self? And it's like, have at least 3 issues in the can and be ready with the next thing immediately, because I feel like it really is. What have you done for me lately? We are consumers by nature, right? We consume something and then it's over. And it never factors in the amount of energy and time and work that went into just producing the first item that someone consumes. And they don't think about it as an ordeal, right?
It is definitely an ordeal. I mean, I sacrificed a lot. I spent a lot of money to just create the visuals for this story. Looks like we have a visitor. Hold on a second. Come on, kitty. Get out of here. So, it was, I mean, we had to get pneumatic wings made.
Right.
Those average.
You can't just go to Walmart?
No. Remote controlled, have to be charged up. They actually failed at one point, so we had to have them sent back and refitted and fixed. The costumes were all custom. Luckily, with the costume background that I got from cosplaying, gave me the ability to make all these costumes as they need to be made. We had to build a very clear idea for the universe with a very low budget, which when people say $20,000 is not a low budget.
No, that's really nothing.
It's a low budget.
Yeah,
that's piddles in like, that's like for craft services, like that covers.
We had to make a stunning 5 to 7 minutes that they could look at and say, okay, there's potential, just potential. And there are people who still believe in it, but it's something that we have to kind of wait and see. It's always hurry up and wait.
Yeah, that's the nature of the entertainment business.
Yeah.
In recent times, when I was pitching stuff for TV shows, I was working with a company and another writer. Showrunners were that was the big, like, those are the people you have to target kind of thing.
Yeah.
Is that still the case? Is that really where you think the green light can happen?
That's always how it happens. You have to find someone who has the name and the ability to push something forward. And take.
Isn't that the catch-22 of it all, right? Like, you need someone with experience who's done it before, but you've never done it before. So how do you it's like, how do you bridge that gap almost?
Networking. A lot of what you're doing now, for example, with this, is a great way to reach people.
Don't tell anybody. It's the only reason we did it.
I'm on to you. You have to keep on making a presence for yourself, and you have to use social media, and you have to be part. I mean, I have a TikTok. I don't know why I have a TikTok, but it's one of those things that realized that it was a great
huge.
Yeah, and people don't realize how much of an audience I gained from that. Just having it. And it's just so ridiculous to me, because I'm just a creator. I'm just a guy who wants to, have fun making, costumes and stuff and be a big kid. But that's how you get it done. But funny enough, though, because of that, that's how I got my next batch of contacts and why I'm working on some really cool projects,
That's funny. It's funny you mentioned that too, because one of the things you're working on is a fan film too. It's a Friday the 13th fan film. I've worked with many people I've been friends with many people. There you go, Friday the 13th, gotta love it. Who've done fan films, and they do it nowadays. It's so amazing, right? I think when we grew up, the idea of doing a fan film to kind of show your worth and to kind of prove something to an audience is a crazy idea. Is this a combination of that? Is it a combination of just the love of the character that you have, but also hey, look, this is the stuff I can do? Or is it solely just, I just want to make a slasher film with Jason?
Well, now you're giving away my plans.
I'm on to you.
I do have a love for the character. I always thought Jason was this ridiculously fun slasher genre, but it got us a lot of attention for. Oh my God, Cat, you're driving me crazy.
The cat is the cat. That's the new Baby Yoda. That cat is now the new Baby Yoda. It's alligator Loki, Baby Yoda, Dan's cat.
To answer your question,
Yeah.
the Jason concept was something that I did when I was younger. I mean, I actually dressed up as Jason to scare a bunch of kids at camp once, and I thought it was absolutely hysterical. And the thing is that now with all the knowledge that I had, and made this, I made pretty much everything for the film.
It's amazing.
I looked at Jason and I said, okay, I've watched these films. I've seen how you have a guy sort of blundering through the woods. Does that scare you? No, it doesn't. What scares you is not knowing what's going to happen next.
Mm-hmm.
And you can take a proven franchise and you can use it to find new ways to scare people as long as you don't know what to expect. And so what we've done with the Friday the 13th Lost fan film is we've kind of reversed the script where you have a bunch of people wandering into the woods for a reason, and then they find themselves that they're in a giant trap, and they have no idea where to go, how to get out of it. And you don't know who's going to survive. There's no lead character.
That's cool.
If you automatically know there's going to be a lead chick and that person's going to make it, then you're like, all right, well, everybody else is cannon fodder. So you already know what's going to happen. In this case, you don't know who's going to live, who's going to die. You find out that, Jason's been here how long? How many years? Yeah. 70 years now. So you would think that he would reinforce the forest and make it more of a death trap. So we make it where it's like you don't know where you're going to step, you don't know where you're going to go, you don't know what's safe. It's a true nightmare to the genre and a true testament to the character as well. As you've seen the images, he almost looks like he's a walking tree. He blends into the forest completely.
No, it is. It's a cool visual, and it's always refreshing to see a new take on something that, at least for us, is very familiar. The Jason, Freddy, Michael Myers genesis of the 80s and late 70s. So it's exciting. It's exciting to see. Dan, tell everyone where they can consume the stuff that you've got going on. What's the best way to check some of this stuff out?
Well, a lot of it usually ends up on my Instagram, _official on IG. I always have a presence on Facebook, as I mentioned before. I'm usually an active contributor with Build a Better Captain America, but because of the Marvel stuff I started working with, I actually have to step it back.
Okay, cool.
I'm usually pretty actively available at most conventions. I will be actually stopping by the Big Apple show this Saturday to support Jesse Simon, who's the grandson of Joe Simon, creator of Captain America.
Yep.
And whenever there's going to be a full slate of shows next year, I will be probably readily involved as I go.
We're easing back into it. We got confirmed to New York Comic Con this year. That'll be probably the first con I go to since C2E2 last year. And I'll even somehow drag Hassan there for a day. Somehow. But we're in Small Press, booth 1815.
Oh, great. I have, so we'll be around. Confirmation as well, so I probably hope we'll see you there.
Awesome. Whenever you got something, I know you got some other stuff we can't talk about just yet going on, but if you got anything, always feel free to drop in. Check out his stuff. It's amazing. And thank you guys for another episode of Rogue Wave. Next week, because they didn't manage to separate Loki and Black Widow like I suggested, we're going to have to find something else to talk about. We'll talk about Emmy nominations. Quite a few Emmy noms happening in the world of pop culture. Falcon Winter Soldier, WandaVision, Mandalorian. We'll talk about all that stuff. I'm sure there'll be another trailer that drops in between then and now. I'm sure there'll be some news. We will see you guys next week.
Rogue Wave.